Good morning, students. Today we are going to learn about intellectual awakening and socio-political changes. In this chapter, we are going to see this intellectual. So, intellectual, which means critical thinking. Okay, we used to think in different manner, in advanced manner. So the political and social changes, it has happened during the 6th century. The minds of the people have been started to develop. So all these things be discussed in this chapter. So now let me read the introduction part. A new civilization began to develop in North India with the revival of trade and urbanization during the 6th century BC. So new civilization and modernity has been started in northern India, north side, with revival. Revival, which means a rebirth, reformation of trade and urbanization, modernity during the 6th century BC. So in this chapter, the major political major political and social changes in northern India, and Buddha and Mahavira were born. So in that period, so many political and social changes had happened, and also the Buddha and Mahavira were born in that period. In this century, following their death, the Buddhism and Jainism took root as major religions in India. So today also we have to see many religions, right? So Buddhism and Jainism is also one of the famous religion in India. So in that time only started to root, and also we go to see about Confucianism, Taoism, China, which was very popular in that period. So all these things we will be discussed in this chapter. Now we go to see one by one. Confucianism and Taoism. Now Confucianism. Early Chinese religion was essentially a worship of spirits and ancestors, but there was a tendency towards monotheism in the form of worship of the supreme ruler or the spirit of heaven. The heaven was the chief nature spirit and the forefather of the emperor, and the chief of the ancestor spirits was not considered a place. Confucius was not the founder of any religion, nor was he even a religious reformer. In his own words, he was not a maker. Okay, he was not a maker, but a transmitter, believing in and loving the ancients. The Confucius, he was not a maker but a transmitter, believing in and loving the ancients like Gautama. He had first lived a life of luxury. His restless and penetrating mind would not allow him to remain inactive. Like Socrates, Confucius was a great teacher. He established a school, and in which he taught his history, poetry, and rules of prosperity. A man's character, he said, is formed by the courts, developed by the rites, ceremony and court say, and perfected by music. He spoke very little of gods and religious rituals, but spoke of disciplined society and of healthy social relations, truthfulness, and obedience. Had to regulate social relations. Those who were in superior positions, such as a father, teacher, husband, or king, had the responsibility of providing protection and fair treatment to the dependents, and if they failed in their responsibility, revolt would become unavoidable. Confucius, also known as Kung Fu Tse. Confucius, also known as Kung Fu Tse, he was advocating a fair social order based on discipline and fairness to all. It would be difficult to overestimate and the influence of Confucius on the Chinese people. Most of the Chinese scholars took pride in being his disciples. For more than 2000 years, the philosophy of Confucius molded and dominated in the Chinese mind. Confucianism, Christianity, and Buddhism furnished the most conspicuous examples in the history of civilization of efforts to convert into idealism the natural of mankind. Zoroastrianism. Before the advent of Zoroaster, the Persians followed a socio-religious faith that they resembled the beliefs and practices of early Vedic Aryans. At the time, they practiced polytheism and worshipped several deities representing natural forces like Mitra, Varuna, Surya, etc. They indulged in costly, bloody, and senseless rituals, leading to exploitation of people by priestly in the class. Polytheistic faith and suppressions obstructed social unity, rational thought, and moral life. Greed and selfishness ruined Persian society. There was a need for a healthy philosophical base to redeem the Persian society from degeneration and chaos. It was at that time that Zoroaster appeared in Persia and gave them a better socio-religious order in the form of Zoroastrianism. The Zoroaster, he was the founder of Zoroastrianism, and he was born in about 600 BC in northwestern in Iran. He was concerned about the suppressions, barbaric religious cults, polytheism, and moral degeneration in Iran. He was pained to see that his people showed no discrimination between good and evil, right and wrong, individual greed and social and need, and between faith and suppressions. To begin with, he asked the people to give polytheisticals and to accept Ahura Mazda as the only God representing good and right. Ahura Mazda, personified as sun, fire, and light, had been carrying on a relentless struggle against the evil forces. who represented ignorance, selfishness, and well vices. The struggle between good and evil became the central theme of Zoroastrianism. This struggle is manifested not only among humans but also in all natural expressions. He asked his people to be with the good and abjure everything that was evil, so as to attain salvation and immortality. His concept of good and evil strengthened the moral base of Persian society, and his monotheism served the cause of social unity among Persian people. The Zoroastrian Ahura Mazda cult did not involve any costly rituals. Zoroastrians could practice Mazda worship in the form of fire worship in their own houses. For them, the body is only the instrument of spirits, hence the corpse. Dead body did not deserve reverence or perseverance, hence the Parsis neither ceremate nor bury their dead. Instead, they expose the corpses to disposal by natural. This method of disposal of the dead is considered as rejection of superstitions practice centered around death, and this contrasts the Egyptian practice of mummification. Zoroaster teaching are found in Zent Avastha, the holy scripture of the Parsis. And next we go to see Jainism. The Jainism and Buddhism in the 6th century BC, it satisfied the need of the time by introducing the most necessary changes. They recognize the realistic view of life. The doctrines of karma did not accept the belief that man's destiny is being predetermined by supernatural forces. Instead, man's own active is karma. Man's own active is a karma. Determine his future. Hence, man can seek salvation not from religious rituals, but by righteous conduct. The Jainism was as old as the Rig Veda. It was revolt against the existing Brahmanism. The new system wanted to make religion simple and avoid irrational rituals. It gave new social religious code of conduct. The Jains claim that the religions derives its tenets from 24 preceptors. 24 preceptors means Tirthangara of different ages. So 24 Tirthangara. These preceptors means Tirthangara. So these preceptors are called Tirthangaras. The earliest Tirthangara was called Rishabha. However, only the 23rd and 24th Tirthangara are considered to be historical figures. The 23rd Tirthangara, named Parsavanath, he was a prince who lived 250 years before Mahavira, and he became an ancestic and preached 4 disciplines to his disciples, like non-injury to living beings, which means ahimsa, and not to speak untruth, and not to steal, and not to possess. So the Vardhamana 24th, he was the 24th Tirthangara, and then he was born in Kundagrama near Vaisali in 599 BC in a royal family. His father was Siddhartha and mother Trisala. The Vardhamana, he was married Yasoda and he had one daughter. The daughter name is Priyadashana. Priyadashani. After the demise of his parents, Mahavira renounced worldly life and became an ancestic. After 12 years of wandering and severe penance, the Vardhamana attained the Kevala Jnana, which means a realization of ultimate truth at the age of 42. Thereafter, he came to be known as Jina. Jina means conqueror of senses, nor Mahavira is a great hero. Mahavira, which means a great hero, and he went on propagating his doctrine to people and princes for 30 years. He received patronage of powerful kings of the Gangetic Valley. The Jain Sangha that he founded helped to spread these new doctrines. At the age of 72, he was died at Pava near Rajagra. Teachings of Mahavira and doctrines of Jainism. Mahavira had no faith in God and also rejected the authority of the Vedas. He believed that the matter of soul, the two internal elements, the soul suffers due to impurities caused by its contact with the matter and is to be born against and again until it frees and it frees itself from the bondage of cycle of births. He preached the three karma. He preached the three germs, three ratna, right knowledge, and right conduct. Mahavira had a strong faith in the doctrine of ahimsa or non-injury to any living being. Ahimsa became the most prominent principle of Jainism. The Jains started to cover their mouth with a piece of cloth to prevent even a small insect from being killed. Care was taken not to injure even a plant or tree, not to cause pain to men, birds, beasts. This principle was against the principle of animal sacrifice associated with yagnas. Mahavira had no faith in the caste system and he preached equality of all human beings. He stressed that all human beings, irrespective of their birth, could attain salvation from the cycle of life, thus death and rebirth, by leading a pure and austere life based on ahimsa. He advised his followers not to make any discrimination between man and man on the basis of color or caste. The importance principles in Jainism. The state of moksha or nirvana can be attained by observing the following three principles or three ratna: right belief, right knowledge, right action. The code of conduct that Mahavira preached has 5 principles: non-injury to living beings, not to utter untruth, not to steal, not to possess, and to practice celibacy, which means brahmacharya. After the death of Mahavira, Jains were split into two major groups: those who followed the extreme tenets of Mahavira and gave up clothes and came to be known as the Digambaras. Others who practiced the simple disciplines of Parsvanath and wore white robes were called Svedambaras. Okay, students, thank you.